Everyone is talking about, oh, you need to be agile. Oh, you need to, because everyone is so worried of losing their job. They are so worried that AI, automation is taking over their jobs. But why not you decide that, okay, cool, what are you really passionate about?
Welcome back to Wise and Shy. I'm your host, Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut.
And I'm Dawn, SG Budget Babe. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that most of you may not have heard of before. It's on career capital. And to help us address that, we have our guest on set, Cohen, but I'll let him introduce himself. Cohen?
Hi, my name is Cohen, and I am a leadership speaker, coach, and facilitator.
There is many things in one.
Multi-hyphenate. That's a term we learned, right?
Everyone has to multi-hyphenate these days. It's very hard to not
I know,
be
right?
multi-hyphenate.
I know, right? I'm a very, very intellectually curious person. I'm intellectually restless. So I think that's why the multi-hyphenate really describes me. I really don't like to be put into a box. I hate labels. And that's why I started a podcast called the Wholehearted Leadership Podcast.
Come again, wholehearted
leadership podcast.
So you say the other leaders not so wholehearted?
No lah. It's a word for me because since young, right, I've been told by people that I'm very intense. So whenever I set my mind to do something, right, I'm like, I'll go all in. If not, I don't do at all. So for a long time, people say, Cole, why are you so intense, huh? I think to myself, is there something wrong with me? It's like, then one day as I was doing my daily jogs, my daily runs, I was listening to a podcast by my favorite podcast host, Brené Brown. And she was having this belly laugh with a guest. I can't remember what they were talking about, but she said something like, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And it just ping came to my mind. It's like, wholehearted. I'm wholehearted. I'm not intense. I'm wholehearted. It's like if I do something, I don't do half-hearted. I don't want to do a half-ass job. I do it all the way in. So I'm wholehearted. So that's how I started this podcast.
Nice. It's like how you are wholehearted with your work now. We at the wedding, you also must do your content. Hey, what your thing?
Yeah, he never lets it go because we were at a friend's wedding together. I was working through it and then he was like,
hey, like we come here, it's wedding, yum sing, no, but you're down there doing your work.
Just to clarify the key moments, I did put my phone down. So like when they came in, when they were making their vows, right? It was more of the in-between. You have a lot of wait time. Okay, quick, edit.
Fair.
She's dedicated.
Yeah,
she's
she
dedicated.
is. So yeah, that's why she has accumulated a lot of career capital. Okay, but to be clear,
great segue.
Yeah, great segue. Of course, I'm a professional, right? But to be clear, like you are the one that kind of anchored, in this word, right? At least when I first found out about the word, my producer told me, I was like, oh, what is this, right? So maybe you want to just kind of highlight for us what is career capital.
Okay, first of all, disclaimer: I cannot claim credit for this word. I read this word from a book. So this is one of my favorite authors. His name is Cal Newport. The first two books they wrote really were game changer for me. The first book was Deep Work, and the second book was, I think, Be So Good They Cannot Ignore You.
Oh, I think I saw the cover.
Yes.
I love the title alone already.
Yeah, I saw the
so
cover.
Good They Can't Ignore You. So basically, he talked about this idea of career capital. Career capital is like this. When you start a business, you need capital, right? If you know capital, you cannot start business. It's the same thing too as well when it comes to career. Very often people think of their career in terms of tasks, job to do, and what they need to do. They need to impress. They need to show their worth so they can be promoted, right? But the idea of a career capital is really about taking stock about what is the capital in your career. Like, what is a skill that you own, that you have, that's unique to you, that you do so well and you do better than most people. And that's very important because career capital gives you that bargaining power, that right to, be able to ask for a promotion or ask for a raise, right? It's like you tell a boss, hey, I want a raise. If you have no career capital, you have no skills whatsoever for people to kind of promote you, then people's like, why should I give you a raise, right? But if you have career capital, you have bargaining power. It's like, I don't give you a raise, you can go to the next competitor or what have you, right? Because you know your value, you know your worth. So in short, career capital is that one unique skill that you possess that distinguishes you, and that skill must be somewhat related to your career, obviously.
Does it have to be one skill or it can be a blend of skills? Because some people are good at, many things, but not one only, right?
That's a good point.
Package many things together, you're also quite unique.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I call it a skill stack. So it's like, it really is it's a skill stack. Yeah. Good point, Don. It's not just one skill, but often we think of one skill to make it simple, right?
Just
it's
to
like one
start
skill
lah.
first, just
Okay.
get started. Yeah, it's like the one thing that people know about you. But obviously, to have one skill, right, you need to have a variety, a smorgasbord of skills that you can kind of combine and stack together in very unique ways. So, for example, it could be a skill. For example, negotiation skills. So knowing that if you go into a negotiation, you typically will get a good deal. So obviously, there's a career capital. But to the side of this negotiation skills, right, there could be a lot of other skill sets such as your networking skills, your rapport building skills, your relational skills.
She's great. I'm bad at it. I would love to go networking with her. she will go be like, hey, can't talk to this person. I was like, okay. I can't talk to this
I can see why. Just look at her. Just look at her.
Yeah. Of course.
Right. I mean, it's also a career capital. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I actually built this up, okay?
Of course,
I was
of
not
course.
born a social butterfly. I used to feel very awkward. So I had to read a lot of books, put it to test. And in my early career days, I was that young 20-something-year-old, young, fresh working adult who has no idea how to talk to people, just awkward stand there. And then my boss would be like, why are you just standing there? Go and
bring
talk to
you here for
people.
what, ah?
Yeah, bring you here not to go and stand there, look pretty only, okay? I'm like, okay. So it was a lot of learning on the go.
It's true.
You're talking to a much older, more mature, experienced version of me now, so you can say
Nice.
that. But back then,
But at least got a pretty thing down.
Yeah, I don't have that capital. But anyway, yes, you were saying.
Yeah, so basically, for example, if you have the skill stack, right, I mean, it's like you're able to combine these different skills to be able to do something in such a way, right, that is unique to you. And therefore, you have that career capital. Yeah, I get it. You have that bargaining power. And to Don's story, right, I actually find that very fascinating as well. Typically, we all often think of a skill as something you're either good at or not good at, right? But you mentioning that you used to suck at it and you have to build that up. And it's like, kudos to you. It's like capital, right? If you want to have capital to start a business, unless you're very, very lucky, you're well endowed, you are a full tai, your parents have a lot of money, they can throw money at your business. Otherwise, you also need to kind of like scream and save, and build up your own capital before you launch your business, right? So I think kudos to you. I just want to give credit to you, for building that up. And very often the skills that we build up from scratch, build up from nothing, are the skills that are the most endearing and enduring. That means there are skills that stay with us forever, right? It's not skills that, you just inherited. Just because you're very smart at mathematics doesn't mean you need to be a mathematician or economist, right? But it's the skills that you build up painstakingly that stay with you forever.
Yeah. I have a friend, right, who went to the music conservatoire, right? So, conservatoire, those type of people, very frou-frou, right? So he was there, in China, and he went for theory lessons, right? So that's called audio theory lessons where you listen, right? Then you're supposed to like write what is being played, right? You got to write it in the manuscript, lah. And his teacher was like, how come you don't know? Right? What's so easy? What's so difficult? Right? And that's because the teacher is a prodigy, right? Or protege, right? Like she knows, she grew up with this is not difficult for her. She's the type of person, right, that you can listen to the aircon sound and tell you this is between E flat and F. That type of people, right? Is very is that like they have it, they born with it. And then he went to another class instead, right? So he gave up this class, he went to another class. Another
So that was a
teacher
terrible
came.
teacher.
Yeah, that was a terrible, but she was talented,
Prodigy,
right?
but terrible teacher.
Terrible. Yeah, but like what you said, right? It's not enduring, right? But he went to another class, same workshop, same assignment, but different teacher. And the teacher wasn't born with the skill. So he knew step by step how to get there, right? And he managed to translate all this information into knowledge to then transfer to this other person, right? So and I think there's some value in that, having that grind and picking up that framework and then slowly kind of being able to explain it to somebody rather than, I was born with it, I'm just good at it.
Actually, this story reminds me of that age-old criticism towards teachers. They always say, like, if you can't do, teach, right? But now that you said it, actually, it is precisely those who can't do by nature who find a way to do it. And that's the thing that can be duplicated to future students and not like the prodigy who knows the answer but can't exactly explain it.
Exactly. There's value in that grind.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think to that point, right, I want to mention that nowadays, right, we see teaching skills and coaching skills as a skill that's very highly rated and highly sought after for corporates. because I run a lot of like corporate speeches, corporate seminars, corporate workshops, and do a lot of executive coaching as well. And one of the things I heard most nowadays is the need for leaders as teachers, leaders being able to duplicate or replicate themselves. There's no like 100% photocopy duplicate of you lah, because if you try to make somebody you, right, then you are going to be frustrated forever. But at least, to be able to translate your skills and pass it on to somebody else. And I think you made a very, very good point. And the ability to teach and to transfer skills to other people and to empower other people is a tremendous career capital for leaders. And if you have that career capital, right, then make sure that you show it. Because the second part of it is be so good they cannot ignore you, right? The second part of it is that you mustn't just be good at it. You must also be able to demonstrate it. You must have visible, tangible demonstration of how good you are at it. Because even if you're good at something and you don't tell people, who knows?
I just want to get a bit more color on like how do I then choose the skill sets that matter to stack? How do I then develop that career capital? Is it just all me? Look inside.
How does one decide what
to develop, right?
Yeah,
what to
correct.
grow? Or is there like some sort of a market mechanics out there that I need to observe? So, these type of skill sets are very important and it's under developed in the open market, right? So how would you think of this thing?
Wow, a very, very good question. Many, many, many layers to this answer.
Yes.
Okay, the first layer I think starts with yourself. I mean, I know it's not just about going into a cave, meditate and suddenly discover your strength or read a book on Ikigai or what. But really it's about, it's like knowing your strength as well. I think we are notoriously bad at, acknowledging our own strength. Just one example to share with you. A friend of mine in Malaysia, she's a sales coach today, and she was telling me, I'm very frustrated with my clients. Like I teach them all the sales techniques, but they never apply. They're like that, how to increase their sales, right? So she's frustrated with her clients. But I just random chit chat with her, and she shared that when she was in school, she actually was the director of the Chinese drama. She actually write the play, and then she direct, and then she coaches all the actors and actresses. And one thing that she really had a heart for are the quiet ones. She gets a kick out of seeing the quiet people discover and find their voice through drama. I said, did you realize that you always have had a heart for the underdogs? And so the people you're coaching, right, what they don't need from you necessarily is just more coaching or sales techniques. What they need from you is to help them to break that inner narrative that they are an underdog. And she was like, oh, wow, Cohen, you gave me a new perspective of how I run my business and the kind of target audience I work best with. So that itself, right, is really a part of knowing your own life story, your own origin story. That's the first question I asked you just now as well, right? It's like knowing your origin story that helps you to understand like why you do what you do, right? It gives you more drive, more motivation. And then it makes a lot of sense, right? A lot of the things that comes together after that. Like why you develop skills, for example, in public speaking presentations, why you present very well is because perhaps you were silenced and you want to give voice to other people. Why do you want to run a podcast, right? Maybe you're a very curious person when you're young, right? It's like you were very intellectually restless and your teacher tell you, hey, don't just stay in your lane, or your parents tell you, don't be such a busy
intellectually restless. Wow, yeah. I mean, quite a lot of my friends recount my quarrels with teachers. It's like, why is it like that? Right?
Or you're told to shut up, right, in school and don't ask so much questions.
But today, if I'm a teacher, then I kind of get it, right? Because I have a syllabus to run. Right? I have timeline, right? So I cannot entertain this one rando kid that's just asking me all these questions that it's not going to come off at exams.
But here's the thing, right? But the teacher should acknowledge you for having that strength and encourage that strength as well. Fair. So if you actually go back and look at your own life story, right, you'll start to see a lot of themes, identify the themes. And those themes will help you to make sense of the skills that you have. You don't just develop the skills out of nowhere. A lot of, for example, even Taylor Swift, right? A lot of the songs that she writes is really based on her own past experiences, lived experiences. And so I think that's starting with yourself. That's the first level. The second level, obviously, we need to also understand like what is your career? What is the career you want to pursue? Very often we pursue a career because we were told that, we should study this, we should be that. And we do that for our parents. Or we do that because that's the pragmatic thing to do. That's how we can make money. And so when we end up doing that, right, we don't actually think very long and hard about what exactly is the essence of what I'm doing. For example, a financial planner, right, a financial advisor, the essence of it is actually not selling insurance. The essence of it is protection. Because as a financial planner, what you do, what you offer to people is protecting their wealth, protecting their future. So you need to understand what's the essence of what you're doing. So knowing the essence of what you're doing helps you to then cultivate the skills that support that. Like, okay, cool, I'm good at numbers. Okay, how does being good at numbers translate to protecting people's wealth? Oh, I'm good at, I'm good at networking. Okay, how is being good at networking support protecting people's wealth? If you're good at networking, now you know who are the people you can refer to your clients, right? For example, if they need any services or any support in any other way. So you're giving people a kind of a holistic planning and holistic protection, not just a singular, point of view. So I think very often people don't think about what is the essence of what you're doing. Like podcast hosts, what's the essence of what you're doing? The essence of what you're doing is really curating. You're actually sorting information for your listeners. And what you're doing is also you're giving a voice to the people who are speaking on your podcast. Just like right now, I'm enjoying it so much because I feel like you are bringing the best out of me, and you are helping me to love my voice even more. So there are a lot of things. You must understand what's the essence of what you're doing, not just blindly do your job.
Okay.
I think the issue is that as employees though, not everyone feels this sense of ownership towards their role and to their career. Some of them really just show up, do the work and wait to get a paycheck and go off, right? And if a better opportunity comes up, they will jump.
Exactly. And to be fair, it's not objectively bad strategy.
It's not wrong.
Right? It's not wrong.
But it would divulge. I mean, it would be disconnected from that essence and really playing to your strength, what drives you. So then how can someone breach that? What if what they really love and they feel they are good and strong is not a job that is well compensated for in society, for instance?
We Keith's blog. Right, investment modes. It's actually Keith was there, right? Like he kind of like what he does, but in IT there's not a lot of progress, at least in the category that he was in. Then he started investing, right? So I think it's a little bit of that whole like, okay, you like what you do, you can kind of keep going, or what is bearable, right? Then you keep going, and in the meantime try to explore other options, right?
Because some people get that chance later on in life to switch.
Course, yeah.
Right? I think even the Woke Salary Man was sharing about this story. So they took up a corporate job first, built up their capital, not career capital, but actual capital. Yeah. And then after that, once they were ready for it, they took the plunge and they did what they really loved to, which was starting up the comic and the media side, right? Fair. Not everyone, especially as an individual, not everyone may be in that situation. Some people really just like doing certain things, but there was no avenue. Right, but anyway, coming back to the story, I love writing, but my parents, basically Asian parents, killed my dreams. They said like, well, there's no famous writers in Singapore. There's only, what's his name? Russell Lim, is it? Singapore Ghost Stories and Catherine Lim, that's it. Like, what makes you think you'll be the third? I'm like, oh, okay, that's true. Valid point. And then after that, I wanted to write, right? And then I wanted to explore other avenues, but there was just very little that I could do as a writer who wanted to publish things that were in my head, in my imagination, and get compensated fairly for it so that I can still pay the bills and, live the expensive life in Singapore, right? Just basic only, don't even need luxury. But it was very hard. So in the end, like, I had to go so many rounds, and I guess I was just kind of lucky that the internet and blogging took off at the time that I started. Yeah, if not, like, I wouldn't have even explored this as a part. And I'm so much happier now because the work that I do on the blog, like, it caters to that drive and that innate essence of what I love, which is I want my words to be read, to be recognized, to have impact. So that fulfills it. But this, I got lucky. Not everyone may have the same, right? Like maybe, for instance, someone who loves singing. There are also not a lot of singers who can make it in Singapore. How can that person then bridge this disconnect?
Very good question. But first of all, I'd like to say something. Did you realize that, Dawn, when you speak, your words are extremely precise? You have very little filler words when you speak, and you're very confident when you speak. And it really, is a sign of the work that you have done as a presenter, as a professional communicator. But have you considered that your ability to speak so well is because you are a writer? Being a writer, right, helps you to curate and craft your thoughts very quickly, very clearly before you articulate them.
Yeah, I must credit to my GP teacher lah. She every time complain my essay too long. So from 10 pages cut to 8 pages, cut to 6 pages. I learned the art of summary very well.
Let me share with you a story. All right, this is again I cannot claim credit. I read this story somewhere. But do you know the comedian Steve Martin of Saturday Night Live? In his early days as a comedian, as a stand-up comedian, right, he was bombing shows left, right, center. He was bombing shows after shows after shows. It was so bad, right? He was about to give up his comedian dream until he decided he needed to do something that he was very resistant to doing, which is writing. He started writing out his script, his scripted lines, writing out the setup, writing up the punchline. And writing became something that slowed down his thought process, so much so that he became very clear as to what makes funny. And after he started writing, right, he started writing variety scripts and everything, and he just took off. He became an award-winning comedian. And so we often don't see the interrelatedness between skills. We tend to, in Singapore, think that, this skill is just this. You write, you must publish a book and become famous and become rich. But if you cannot become famous and rich, then forget it. But you don't realize that writing skills are in demand everywhere. Let's say if I were to write an email that requires my boss's attention, do I just write regarding the XXX project, which is very boring, right? But you say, if you can write the email headline such as, regarding the project, you got to read this. Now, the headline writing is a very important skill. Now your boss will go, okay, this
clickbait
email.
On me, huh? Wow, this boss, I look at it, it's like, wow, you clickbait, huh?
Clickbait
Okay.
is an art.
Yeah, clickbait is an art.
Mothership's the best at it,
Without
right?
feeling like, you clickbaited, right? So yes.
But it's a skill, right? Because now your email get bumped up, your email gets attention, and then your boss is also more cognizant of the work that you put in. So in that way, actually, writing skills is very important. I didn't realize writing skills is so important until I used to work in a public sector, in a government sector. In the government sector, writing skills is everything. Do you know they even judge your potential to be promoted by how you write the minutes of meeting? So for example, if I have a minutes of meeting, like I'm going to write a minute of our meeting today, I can craft the minutes in such a way that make Don look good and make you look bad, or vice versa. So interesting, right? So like how I write, how I craft that minutes of meeting really, really does showcase my thought process. And I think that your skills are not in vain.
Fair.
So to answer your question, right, how do you bridge that disconnect? I think it's also important. We talk about career capital, right? We also need to, at the same time, be so good that they cannot ignore you. So if, for example, you know that you're very talented in a particular area, let's say you are talented in art, you need to be able to develop the skills to make your art marketable. So while you are in a career, you're in a job, because Singapore is so expensive, you need to pay your bills, right? So you are in a job that pays you, that sustains you, but in your free time, develop your skills. Really get good at what you do. Again, be so good they cannot ignore you. Really developing a craftsman's mentality. I think a lot of times we get things all wrong. We think, what am I passionate about? So I should go and do it. But passion is often, in Singapore we say 三分钟热度啦. We are bombarded by so many options. We become so easily distracted. We find ourselves chasing after bright, shiny objects, right? So it's so easy for us to be sidelined and distracted. So passion is not sustainable.
How do I discern between what am I truly into, and like what is the bright, shiny object? Because the bright shiny object, it kind of captures people's imagination, right?
Yes.
And then you kind of will tell yourself stories that actually I really like this thing, right?
Yes.
So is there a way to kind of discern this?
Yeah. When you're passionate about something, right? I am a believer of every word has a meaning. So if you go to search the etymology, that means the Latin roots of the word passion, it comes from the word pati, P-A-T-I, which translates to suffer. So if you are passionate about something, it actually means you're willing to suffer for it. So for example, let's say you decided you're going to start a production studio. You think it was a good idea. You rent up this space, you build up the place, you build up the studio. But about 2-3 months down the road, you may, it's just a bright, shiny object. I no longer am passionate about this. But I'm sure you've been doing this for years, right? And I'm sure there were a lot of late nights, eating, cold dinner, a lot of late nights spent doing this work. Now that's passion. There were a lot of slow times when you're wondering whether can you pay next month's rent, but you powered through it and you're still here today. Now that's passion. So very often people tell me, people come up to, let's say a musician and say, hey, I wish I can play the guitar as you. I'm very passionate too. Bullshit. If you're really as passionate, you have done whatever it takes to get so good at it that people will know it. So the fact that you're all here today tells me that you're passionate about what you do. So that's the differentiator. Not just whether you're able to do it in a short run, but whether you can sustain it. If you're passionate about something, you will sustain it. You will be so intrinsically driven and motivated to do it that you don't need external, you don't need, of course it's good to have some hugs and applause once in a while, but passion sustains you even when you get no hugs and applause.
But passion cannot pay the bills, right? So objectively, we must still kind of contextualize it to the career landscape in Singapore,
You need to
right?
have the career capital.
Yeah. So in that sense, how do I then identify? Because I think what you've established is a lot of innate soul searching, right? Which I think, okay, people get it, right?
Yeah.
But is there a parameter where I then look at the market to say that, okay, in the market, these skills are lacking, I'm going to build there, right? So how do you kind of translate that?
Okay, cool. You need to know, for example, like what are the latest trends in your market, whatever industry you're in, right? You need to know like what are some of the things that people are talking about. That's why it's always important to go and read, your trade journals, your industry journals, hear what people are talking about. And here's a funny thing. When you hear everything that people are talking about, you can then decide to zig while everyone is zagging. Right. So very often, for example,
what does that mean?
Zig by what? So everyone talks about, everyone's talking about, you need to be agile. You need to, because everyone's so worried of losing their job. They are so worried that AI automation is taking over their jobs. Every single career conference I go to, right, I hear this all the time. Right. So instead of just focusing, I just going to keep up with the Joneses. I better develop myself in AI. I better go and learn coding. I better go and learn all these things. But why not you decide that, okay, cool, what are you really passionate about? Let's say you are very passionate about, like I am passionate about, things like having conversations, running podcasts. I'm very passionate. I'm a very capable person. My mom always tell me, you're very capable. And you like to know about other people's things. You like to go and ask around about things. Sometimes I like, in the corporate world, I like to gossip, not proud of it, but I'm just going to say.
Hey, I think gossip people live longer.
Thanks for saying that. I feel so seen. I feel so seen now. Right?
Rather than you gobble it up and let it boil, right?
Yeah. But I think I realized one thing is that I have this knack for drama and everything like that, but I never really actually go and dive into it until 2018 when a mentor of mine told me, hey, Cohen, you got dramatic potential. That's when I started going into worlds like learning improv theatre in London. I spent 10 days learning improv theatre, and I went to learn about method acting and stuff like that. Really go and learn about how to tell a story. So I realized that's why I love telling stories, and I'm very capable about people's stories, right? So what is my skill? My skill is being able to bring out people's innate stories in them. That's why I'm good at what I do. And now, I know everyone's talking about AI, but AI can generate stuff for you. ChatGPT can create an article for you. But who is the one who's going to go out there and pick out people's story? Distill the essence of who you are by listening to your story, finding your origin story, be able to tell your story in such a compelling way that people connect with. Because through time immemorial, people connect to stories. So while everyone's talking about AI, I decided I was going to talk about stories. And story as a complement to AI. Because that's what AI cannot do yet. So that's what I mean by zigging while everyone is zagging. Everyone's talking about one thing, you develop your complementary skill sets. And now you must be able to tie your complementary skill sets with what other people need. So I'm always constantly looking at, all kinds of weird ways in which to kind of like complement what I'm doing. Yeah. So that to me is really about, and I don't need any incentive to do that because that's the kind of things that tickle me. That's the kind of thing I geek up over, and I get such a high learning stuff like that, like figuring how things work, how people think. So
it sounds like part of building up your career capital is to enjoy the process, go and do things that you're inherently interested in learning about or you're curious about, and then really finding a way to tie that back to what you do.
Yes.
rather than the other way around, which is I want to be a good, let's say, speaker. Good speakers do A, B, C, D, E. Let me go and learn skill A, B, C, D, E, because then the whole world is doing the same thing. There's nothing that makes you different. But what you do is the other way around. And then as you go and learn other stuff, you tie it back to what you do. And that then makes you refreshing, makes you unique. And that's the career capital that you market.
That's right.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your chief financial coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. But even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yep, now back to the show.
Okay. But are there certain practical things that people can do to essentially accumulate, all these skill sets, or all these like building their career capital lah? Are there certain things like tangible strategies that people can do for these things?
Maybe at this time, I want to ask you. I want to turn the tables on you and ask you the question. Like, doing what you are doing for some time, how do you know you're on the right track? How do you know that you are not at a plateau of your creative capacity?
I definitely know when I'm at my plateau of my creative capacity because I'm burnt out and dry and I got nothing much to give anymore. Right, so I will kill certain shows when that happens. Right, so that's the parameter of where I am. But sometimes you don't get to decide these things, right? Like I get to decide because to me, I just want to close the show. I close the show, right? Of course, it affects other people, but that's a different discussion. As compared to someone being in an organization, sometimes they don't always get the decision to close it, right? So if you're talking about on those grounds, I understand. And if you're talking about, say, okay, how do I then grow and develop, from a business person standpoint or from a management standpoint? Essentially what I did is I grew the business to a level that I hire myself as a middle manager, right? Essentially, like that's the kind of the size of the business today,
and
right?
What did you learn from that journey?
To be very clear on this, right? I'm very sharp and very shrewd in the business, right? So as I go and grind the business, talk to people, connect with people, then I get a decent sense of how this thing works, right? So I can map out the whole thing very clearly. Who to talk to, what's the budget, what's their KPI, what's the breakdown, who you talk to can close what budgets, like what's the timeline to close certain things, right? So I have a very good sense of the business side. Of course, the creative side of things, I'm also decently good at it, right? So these things take time to accumulate. You put yourself out there, you go and test out the market, you collect information, and you do that. And I think it's a big part of developing as a professional, and it's a big part of you kind of like developing your career. If you want to move up in the career ladder, right? Then you need to be able to get a very good sense of the market and not just your own skill sets. Then you can contextualize these things, right?
Thank you, Reggie, for sharing that. Right? It's like just the exchange alone, I learned so much. Right? Just to summarize, what are some of the key things that Reggie has mentioned. Right? Number one, you describe yourself as dry. So when you feel that you're creatively at your barrier, right? Learn to realize that, okay, maybe you are reaching the fullest capacity. That's one key thing, realizing it, because many people don't realize it. They just every day rinse and repeat. Then after a while, you just get caught in this whole grind. Secondly, you did mention something like going out there to talk to other people. I think it's very, very important as leaders, as managers, as people in a corporate, you need to network. Network with your peers. Network with not just people within your own company, but people outside your company. LinkedIn is a great place to network. And so when you network, right, it's like you're kind of building allyship. Allyship is kind of like, sometimes when, even as a speaker myself, I reach the creative max. I just call a friend and say, hey, bro, or hey, sister, it's like, I'm so lost right now. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if this is the right thing to do. Can we just talk about something? And sometimes the person can just listen to me, ask me a question and listen to me. And sometimes just listening to myself talk, I get the answer. Or sometimes what I need from the other person is maybe a different perspective. Then the person is able to say something like, hey, this is why it used to happen to me and this is what I did. And I was like, oh yeah, I never see it that way before. So you get new, fresh perspective. So I think developing networks, allyships, and also mentorship is very, very important. So that's another practical step. Another one that you mentioned towards the end, right? It's like testing. You say something like testing. I think it's very important, in a corporate world that we create place for testing. I know it'd be like saying, I got so many deadlines to hit and I'm totally burnt out. But you need to also create space for testing. Testing is important because I will talk about this in terms of, we need to have the psychological safety. So we need to talk to our manager. You need to negotiate with your own boss. If you are in a middle management role, right, you also have a boss. And you need to have that willingness to, career capital again, tie it back to career capital. You need to know what your skills are, and your boss value about you. Now you can then go to that boss and say, hey boss, I know I have these skills that you value about me, but there are times when I need to also sharpen those skills. And in order to sharpen those skills, I need to do things I never do before. Right? And so when I say do things you never do before, it doesn't mean like, there's a major project, you decided to do something totally wacky and unorthodox. That's gambling with your career. That's taking risk on a very high profile project. But maybe on certain smaller profile projects, or even within high-profile projects, you cut it down into some small sub-segment of that project. You can say to the boss, hey, for this particular thing, I would like to test a little. I like to be playful a little. I like to try something new. If it works, right? Hey, who knows, right? We may have some surprising results. But if it doesn't work, okay, never mind. I'll just kill it and then just go back to what we know best. And so we need to create that space for us to also test. I think there's a lot of lessons to learn from there also, right? Not just entrepreneurs, because you mentioned something about career. If you just go through your career like, bo pian, no choice, typical Singaporean way of saying, bo pian, no choice, right? Then what happens is that you will not have any choice. But if you really look at your career, you are the CEO of your own career, you always have a choice. Then you have that ability to then plan forward in your career. And finally, developing skills that are so good, you can have that fire your boss equity. Not just career capital. Now you are so good at what you do. You know that you're able to find work outside.
It's true. You have that fire. And I know. I'm a boss, so I know who is good, right? So when I know who is good, I'm actively thinking of how to keep this person, right? So it's a different ballgame, and I don't think bosses are idiots, right? So they're lousy management, but I don't think most of the managers that are in high level corporate roles are idiots, right? So they are aware, right? And I think sometimes we do kind of make it sound like, our management don't really understand all these type of things, right? So it's part and parcel. But you are right to say that if you have a lot of capital, right, actually the other side of the table is also very anxious about trying to keep you, lah.
I know.
So yeah.
So we talk a lot about career capital, the strategies to build that up and how to get there. But I guess like the next burning question would be, what's the difference between career capital and personal branding?
Well, okay, fair.
Is it
one is about telling up people that you're good at it, and one is about really being good at it?
Is that the difference?
Right?
Yeah, I would say there's so much focus on personal branding. And I think the reason why the focus on personal
branding... Being a weird brand is also a brand, yeah, just saying. I walk into the room, people sure see me, man. Because I will never dress like how everyone is dressed. I always try to be a bit different so that, it's like, what a weirdo, so underdressed. Then you get a call already, right? But anyway, yes, please continue.
Oh, I like that. I mean, talking about that, right, it's like one of my favorite personal branding coach is Chris Do. He actually marries marketing with creative. He's a creative type, and he really helps creative to market themselves, because creative are very good at creating, but they are not good at marketing. They're not good at talking about their work. They're kind of like, this is my art. If I have to explain my art, then it's no longer art, kind of way of thinking of it, right? But I think very often we need to also move away from that perspective, because personal branding, really, the need for it is kind of, your work doesn't speak for itself. You need to speak for it. Right? And I think we Singaporeans have so much resistance and barriers about it. It's like putting ourselves out there. Oh, but am I good enough? Imposter syndrome and all that stuff, right? And it's like, I don't want, what will people think of me? Will people think I'm just a master bullshitter and all that? So I think there's the element of personal branding. However, I think personal branding can sometimes be taken to the extreme, where people spend a lot of time focusing on the branding, but they don't actually spend time getting good at it, as you mentioned.
It's true.
You just really, really need to be very good at it.
Once they sit down, I know it's fluff already. It's very easy to sense one. So it's
you let it say I'm very conscious already. Like, I'm also wondering whether have I been bullshitting? Have I been blowing bubbles up the ass over the last half an hour?
Don't worry.
So in that sense, career capital is like the actual cake, the ingredients. But then the personal branding is like the cream and the cherries that you put to decorate it. Then you decorate it very nice, the person buy already. Then they're like, walao, these are not worth my calories, not worth it. But if it's really good, right, then you're like, wow, this chocolate cake looks terrible, but wow, it's the best chocolate cake I've ever tasted. So that's the career capital, but no personal branding.
That's called? That's called rustic.
Rustic. I like
Outside look like Jasai, right? But inside them also. So it's like,
But sometimes fasting is also a brand, right?
Yes,
It's a form of
exactly.
brand as well. It's a form of brand as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Some things are
fair.
rustic and you want it that way, right? It's like, I mean, for me, I really like that analogy, that the cake. I love that, Don. See, that's what writing does for you, right? I mean, you've probably been thinking about this for a long time.
I have to always explain things in an
Analogies, yes.
That's beautiful. I love it. Yeah. So yeah, I think really, career capital is really knowing that you have the substance. You know
Is
your
there an
stuff.
objective standard to measuring this substance? Because in my worldview, there is.
What is yours? I'm interested to know that.
In whatever you do, right, there is a ladder. Right? So some people are just objectively not as good as the others, and it's relative, right? So the relativity then forms an objective measurement of what is considered good and bad. Right? So because I feel like sometimes we always just think like, oh yeah, we are good, or like we feel like, oh, we want to be better, but better against who?
Against what, yeah.
And when you're just in your own small little island, it's okay lah, everything is fine, right? But when you want to put yourself out in the market, there is objective measurement, right? People are measuring you against the download numbers you can derive, the look and feel you can do, the type of things you can do. There is some sort of a objective.
I actually don't see that as
standard.
objective. I see that more as like relative comparisons.
So you don't think that there's like when once you get commoditized, like the amount of articles, amount of reads in your articles, the amount of downloads on your podcast, you don't feel that is.
I think the marketers and clients try to do that.
They have that, right?
To
Yeah.
quantify things, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think the standards will always change. That's one. Like remember back in those days, people used to always ask what is the follower count. And then Reels came out, and then they started realizing that 100k or 300k influencer does not necessarily mean better value on my ad budget because the Reels is like 1,000 views.
Yeah.
For 100k influencer, the engagement rate is so low. It doesn't make sense. On the other hand, someone with lesser following but a higher engagement rate would be better worth the dollars spent, right? So things change all the time, and I think at the end of the day, it's really like looking at like what you said, right? Looking at what's out there, talking to people, and then like evolving accordingly.
Yeah.
Because back then in those days, I mean, honestly, as a blogger, we didn't need to be on social media. Why do I need to do video? Remember when I was faceless, right? It was just that cartoon figure of me, right? And then I had to come out, and then now like not just come out, photos also not enough. Must do
Short video,
videos,
everything,
right? Yeah, so it
Waymo,
keeps changing.
Very nice video. Please check out
Nice
the
on my Waymo video.
Yes. She worked very hard for her
Just uploaded
videos.
last night.
A lot harder than me. So,
Yeah, so I think like it changes. And one thing is really adapting by watching what other people are doing and then taking the best or taking what we like out of them to apply it back. Because it's something that I do for myself.
Can I not argue that there is objective standard? It's just that these objective standards have shifted over
It
time.
shifts all the time.
So there is an underlying measurement
There
of
is.
what is considered good
Because
at any
it
point
depends
in
on
time.
the other options. mah.
Exactly, right? And at any point in time, there is a measurement of what is considered good. Even if you're in back office, if you can clear 50 cases, other people clear 20 cases, you are better.
Exactly.
Right? So there
Exactly.
is a base standard. But like you've also highlighted that over time, these standards change.
Yeah.
Right? And then, sometimes there's a holding power. That's a different discussion.
I guess that's why like career capital, if we think of it in that sense, we also need to know who are the right people to measure ourselves against.
Fair.
Otherwise, we might be building up career capital in the wrong domain. Or maybe what we've built is actually more suitable for something else, but we haven't seen it yet or we don't know, so we're in the wrong place. Like someone who's super creative, you put them in a very like non-creative role, right? Their fullest potential is not going to come out. Right? But if you put them elsewhere or if they recognize that actually I need to get out of this and go elsewhere where my skills and talent are better rewarded, then that will be where they'll find that ikigai lah.
Yeah.
Right.
No, which is I think where Cohen comes from, right? Which is a lot of you do all these like weird side things, right? Actually, sometimes they do value add. You may not be the most structured way to think about, I'm going to learn, theater, I'm going to learn all this. But actually, it does come together. And I have a lot of random skills that I believe has accumulated to where I am, right? There's not a like, let's go for a program, company send you for upgrading course and then, skills future, whatever lah, right? So
The best objective measurement of whether a person is a master at what he does, right, is the ability for you to be able to dissect something, to unpack something, to know whether something is good or not good. That's called discernment. Yeah, so like those Japanese craftsmen, right? Those whether is it a Zen artist or you're a sushi chef, you spend like 7-10 years to train to be a sushi chef.
Yeah.
Now that's really a level of discernment. It's not sushi you get from your NTUC, but really sushi that you need to cut with a certain knife. You need to, and if you are a sushi connoisseur or you are a sushi chef yourself, when you taste the sushi of another chef, you can really know what's good and what's not good. And that to me is the mark of true mastery.
Nice.
So
Which ties back into the other book you mentioned, Deep Work, right?
Yes.
Actually, I
You
just
read
thought
that
of
also, huh?
something. No, I haven't read, but
Okay.
now I'm keen to check out both books. But I think was it Malcolm Gladwell who came up with the definition
It's
of what
always
defines an
Malcolm Gladwell,
expert.
The 10,000 hours.
10,000
It's not
hours,
Malcolm Gladwell. It's
yeah.
actually Anders Ericsson. But the thing is,
Never mind, it's all arbitrary.
That's been disapproved already.
Yeah.
That's been disproved already. You don't
So
even
what
need
is the
10,000.
new standard then if it's
Honestly
not
speaking,
10,000 hours?
is so daunting. It's like if you think, oh my god, 10,000 hours to get good at something. Okay, forget it. I don't bother already. I'll never be as good as
No, but
Reggie,
there are many
Yeah.
side ways to this, right? I mean, you can. It's like podcasting, right? Like I was never radio trained, but I'm a side tangent. I came in on the side, right? And then it's like, hey, this guy not bad, right? So it's a little bit of this. There's side ways to do a curveball into the industry, like you don't always need to do the grind. Yeah.
It's more than 10,000 hours, right? For example, you say you want to be a good communicator, good podcaster, a good speaker. You look at yourself in the mirror every day and speak to yourself. Maybe you take 10,000 hours lah. But seriously, if you are speaking at a high intensity, high stake situation, your learning curve is shot up. What do I mean by that? So for example, like let's say if you are doing a live show right now, that's why people do Facebook Live. Like every single word, there's no retake. There's samula. Let's do it again. There's no samula. Basically, it's like high stakes, high intensity. It's like everything is there already.
Budget.
Yeah.
2024 and
Yes.
that was high stakes.
And we did the live event at OCBC.
Yes.
That was also high stakes. Whatever you say is whatever it is. Right? There are like 50, 60 people in front of you, right? So,
and for that, you can actually shortcut your learning curve because those high stakes, that one itself, probably if I were to put a credit to hours, that is equals to probably 100 hours of practice. That one itself is 100 hours. So you need to do hundreds of this to get your 10,000 hours.
okay.
So actually the idea is
the
that you do
hacks.
deep work, but the quantity doesn't matter as much as the quality. So you can shortcut your quantity by going for more high stakes stuff where your learning curve is higher.
Kind of similar to gym training, right? At some point, the 20 kg is lame already, right?
You don't like that,
And
Lee.
then-
I 5 kg
No,
only.
okay. The 5 kg is lame, right? Then is like you gotta go further to go further, right? So yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Volunteer, let's say you work in an organization, right? Like your job. You talk about the PMETs, right? But there's all kinds of ways for you to volunteer. Like for example, volunteer for the wellness committee, volunteer for the diversity, equity, and inclusion, committee or women empowerment. So they have all this round table, they have discussions where you get to like organize events. So if you want to hone your organization skills, your events management skills, volunteer to organize events.
That's actually a really good shout out. I did recognize this in some of the corporate workshops that I've done, where I always ask like, who organized it? Is it HR?
all volunteer.
And sometimes it's not HR, it's literally like a group of colleagues coming together and then one or two take the lead and they reach out, they go and ask HR for the budget, get it approved and they organize everything. I think that's a great like actionable step that listeners of this podcast can take away with.
Yeah.
Like go to
CCA.
your company, see what you can volunteer for, and those are what we call low stakes environment, right? Because the capital also not yours, it's from another person's budget. But practice there and then learn.
Another example, for example, if you know there's a high stake, let's say your CEO or your Asia Pac president is going to be in town. And for example, you live in Tampines, right? You say, hey, I don't mind, that day I'm free. You volunteer to drive down to the airport, pick the person up and drive the person to the hotel. Seriously, that 1 hour, 45 minutes drive from the airport, 30 minutes drive max in Singapore, right? That drive from the Changi Airport to, let's say the hotel is in Orchard Road. You can have a one-to-one conversation with the country president or the CEO. Can you imagine, number one, what exposure it gives you? Number two, if you ask the right questions like a podcast host would ask and listen to what he shares, how much wisdom would you learn? Of course, you don't ask too much confidential things, but keep things lighthearted. And at the end of that half an hour, wasn't that high stakes? Wasn't that high intensity? you're probably driving and you're like shaking your pants, right? It's like, oh, I'm talking to the CEO, I'm talking to the CEO. But that's high intensity. But after that half an hour, you kind of feel like you grow by 2 or 3 inches because now you're able to hold your own in networking situations. Now you know that if you are so-called in an elevator with a CEO, you don't need to pretend to look up and down or take a look at your phone, pretend to be busy. Now you can hold a proper conversation. So volunteer for this little in-between stuff like that people just think, no, dirty job lah, pick up CEO, who wants to do? Hey, okay lah, Reggie, since you like to, Kiyosai, you go and do. But seriously, trust me, that is a really powerful strategic move.
It is. But I can imagine, I'm just going to play the devil advocate here.
You're
Some people
Tarzan.
will not do that because they will say like, I don't want my colleagues to think I'm sucking up.
Wayang.
Right? Yeah. So what can they do to overcome that self-limiting talk?
I mean, it is what it is lah, right? You want to make progress, you got to wayang, right? So you got to do what you got to do lah. I don't think there's a way out of this.
Actually have. Yeah, you come with me.
Oh yeah. Fair.
No, I own self suck up. I'm just building my career. You come open invite, then nobody come, then it's your tai chi.
Actually, I learned this accidentally lah. Because once I know a very famous speaker from overseas coming to Singapore. My friend is organizing the event. Say, hey bro, we're going to pick up this guy from the airport. After that, we bring in the person with jumbo. Want to come or not? I say, okay, I want to come. Actually, you know what? I want to go or not? Free jumbo ma. I like to eat chili crab ma.
So you were there mainly for the food, not for the
food
speaker.
lah. I'm a very greedy person. So I go there, I'm very shallow that time lah. So I say, okay lah, I'll go free jumbo. My tu liao, let's go. So I go there eat. I thought to eat free jumbo. But the funny thing is my friend is driving. The guy is seated in front but then there was another person who came along. So the person sit in front. And then the famous speaker sat behind next to me. So I get to keep him company. I get to really, be closest to him. And I really grown a lot. Just the question I asked him, like, how do you start out as a speaker? How do you market yourself? How do you grow your speaking career? I learned so much, It's like in the short time, it's like attending an MBA for half an hour.
Nice.
Even though I came just for the jumbo, actually. Don't judge me,
Yeah.
I guess we covered lots of ground in today's episode. That was very insightful. So we learned about career capital, how that is defined. We distinguished that career capital is the actual substance of the cake itself, whereas personal branding is the whipped cream and cherries on the top. So you can't have either one, you need both. Yeah, and then finally, we also talk about some actionable strategies that people can use at their workplace, which is, for example, organizing or volunteering for stuff that your company is involved in, or picking up the CEO or country president or whoever and get the MBA in a taxi, right?
I feel like I've really grown a lot. 10,000 hours. I think today I've really clocked about 100 hours being interviewed by both of you.
Thank you. Yes,
And by listening to this episode, you guys have also clocked 100 hours. So we'll see you in the next one.